Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. Unfortunately today we heard the sad news, Eddie Van Halen passed away. I'm kind of at a loss of words for exactly what to say, but we just wanted to jump on here and pay our little tribute to Eddie and the legacy that he left behind. I know this is a big loss for everybody in the rock community and the music community just in general. I don't know what else to say other than, Eddie, thank you for all of the incredible memories you're leaving behind for us. As much as we knew that you were sick, this was an episode I was hoping I never had to do. So I guess let's just jump in on our conversation and our tribute about the late, great Eddie Van Halen. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I have with me my buddy Vincent LaRussa, and we just found out, literally I think moments ago, the very sad news, the passing, Eddie Van Halen. In fact, I think when I called you, Bud, you hadn't even heard it yet, right? That's how quickly I called you.
Yeah, I called you. You called me, and I was like, "What do you want?"
Right, exactly.
Like sort of joking around, but then I realized the joke was going to end quickly when she told me the news.
Yeah, it was one of these things. You know, his son posted about it. You know that Eddie had passed, and we all knew he'd been sick for a while. You know, we heard all the rumors about him having cancer, but when I saw the news late this afternoon here, it hit me as a ton of bricks. You know, like, wow, this as much as you knew he was sick, it was not expected to see this today. So you know, this is all like literally in the last half hour, even for you and I, we didn't even think about what to talk about. We just knew we wanted to talk about it, right? I mean, Eddie Van Halen is, you know, you can make a case arguably the most influential, one of the greatest guitar players of all time. So what are your thoughts? You know, do you remember even the first Van Halen album that you had as a kid?
I do, and actually have it with me.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I actually went and digged it out, and this was the 1984 record, and this is my original copy that I got in 84. Did it come out in 85? I always can get that mixed up.
It came in 84. Yep.
Right.
Hence and the title.
Yeah. Can't tell you how many times I listened to this record as a kid, how many times I watched the Jump video. I mean, it's still, Jump is, you know, arguably, if I had to quickly, off the top of my head, you know, my most favorite top 10 pop songs of all time. Just when I hear that synthesizer, and it's ironically not Eddie playing the guitar, it's just today feels as fresh, and I get as excited to listen to that song as I did from when I saw that video. And you know, just remember watching the video on, might have been Friday night videos that we had back in New York, or we didn't have MTV, and just throughout the whole video, you know, Eddie's constantly smiling throughout, you know. I had never seen him in concert, and yeah, so this was my first record, and then interestingly enough, we spoke about this when we reviewed the Van Halen's first album. This is the record that you got me for my I want to say 17th birthday. Right. From Record Factory, that you market out the price, but I can still see that you paid $7.99 for it, by the way. But you know, I had Diver Down, I think, at that point, and I don't know if I had maybe Women and Children First. Now, of course, I have all the records, but yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, you know, those were kind of my first records that I had, Van Halen.
Yeah, you know, obviously you and I are the same age. You know, I know there's fans that are older than us that got into Van Halen before us. You know, for me, same thing. 1984, to my recollection, was the first album I had. In fact, I hate to even admit this. It might have been the first time I even remember knowing who Van Halen was. And I hate to admit that because, like, what did I live in a bubble? But I was only 13 years old at the time, right? So I remember that Jump video, just like you said. I remember all of a sudden becoming an instant Van Halen fan. I don't remember which albums I got after that, but you know, it was something that just very quickly I became a fan. Obviously, Dave left in '85, and Sammy came in, and I was a fan all through the '80s. You know, there's always this debate, Sammy versus Dave. I loved it all. I actually loved it all. In fact, oddly enough, even this past weekend, I was posting about some of the Gary era. You know, so I never understand. You know, look, at the end of the day, Eddie was the songwriter. The music of all of those songs. And I know people have preferences about eras, but you know, that was Eddie writing all of those. And I think his son kind of touched on this recently. You know, people are always, you know, one era against the other, but hey, it was my dad that wrote all those songs, really. So, you know, it's what an amazing body of work.
And that's not to take away from the melodies and stuff that you know, Sammy and Dave, you know, obviously two totally different personalities, two totally different Van Halens. I the same when 5150 first came out. I remember being so excited, and when I first heard "Why Can't This Be Love," I was just like, "Holy crap! How did they do this?" You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And again, one of my favorite Van Halen songs of all time. I just love that tune. Never gets old. I love that part of Van Halen too. I think, you know, the original Van Halen is always going to be the original Van Halen. Sure. You know, I know there's the camps of, you know, which is better. It's no better or worse to me. You know, it's just they both produced, you know, great music, great records. And, you know, I'm not as familiar with the Gary Sharon era, which was one record I know. But I did see that you had posted that. But yeah, even into the 90s, I bought for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, I think, and then there was Balance, I think, that came out afterward. You know, great records. You know, even when that grunge thing was going down, they still kind of stayed true to Van Halen. You know, and yeah, this is just I you know, honestly just feel like a part of my childhood. Just I hate to be whatever. It just felt like it died today. It just, I know we always say this. We've done a bunch of these recently, and you know, maybe this does hit a lot harder for me because I felt like I was a lot more intimate with Eddie and his body work and Van Halen. You know,
without a doubt.
And you know, it's just I had a feeling this day was going to come. You know, because of everything we had heard, rumors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a tremendous, tremendous loss to the music community, no matter what style of music. I don't care what you play. Yeah. You know?
No. And, you know, to that point, one of the things I remember, and you remember this about me as a kid when I was 14, 15, 16, I loved the rock music, but I was also into pop. And you remember this, I went into like a Madonna phase and a Survivor phase, and Prince was considered more of a pop artist at the time. And I used to say that and like sit in my room and hide my face because it wasn't cool to listen to hard rock music and to listen to pop music also.
Although I thought it was. Because
right, thought it, right. But I wouldn't say
I was, you know, at that same time I was buying Let's Hear It for the Boy 45 by
exactly.
Denise Williams, you know, to be fair.
Yes, you know? So you and I appreciated the pop elements of music, but I wasn't going into school saying, oh yeah, I listen to Van Halen, Kiss, Black Sabbath. Oh, and I also picked up the new Madonna album, right? Unless I wanted to get beat up by kids, right? So, but saying that, when I found out Eddie Van Halen was on Michael Jackson's Beat It, it made me feel like, hey, this is okay. It's okay that I like this because Eddie Van Halen's on Michael Jackson's album, right? And you don't get more pop than Michael Jackson at that time, right? He's the king of pop, right? So I remember thinking to myself as a kid, well, it's okay. It's okay that I like some of this pop music because friggin' Eddie Van Halen says it's okay. You know, so that's, to me, when I hear Eddie Van Halen, I remember that as my childhood, like almost like accepting that it's okay to listen to all different types of music because Eddie Van Halen taught me it was okay. Yeah.
No, it's a great point. I mean, again, I was a huge fan of that Thriller album. Even if Eddie wasn't on it, I was still a huge fan.
You see, and I never was, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's funny.
But I was just always a big Jackson 5, Michael Jackson fan, Off the Wall and stuff like that. But yeah, I just remember, you know, when I heard that solo, it just sounded distinctly familiar.
Right.
And quickly realizing no matter how great the other players were on that record, and there's a lot of great players. Steve Lukather played guitar on that. He's all over that record, guitar player in Toto, and is playing on countless number of records. But there's only one unmistakable sound of Eddie. And you said it. I mean, how many guitar players did he influence and still will influence?
Absolutely.
And just change the genre of rock guitar. You know, there are certain guys like, you know, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, you know, guys like that changed the landscape. You know, some people will argue either way. Ace Frehley, you know, Ace, obviously not the most technical guy, but he, you know, energized a generation upon generations of of people to play guitar, want to play guitar because they wanted to be like Ace, and even more so for Eddie. It's just incredible.
I remember one of the books I read about the early days of Van Halen spoke about like in 75, 76 when they were doing backyard shows and club shows, and Eddie would be doing that finger tapping. A lot of times he'd turn his back to the crowd because he didn't want people to see that and start copying it. Right, exactly, like a little bit of secret sauce. And I wish in 77 I was old enough to be buying my own albums and be aware of who Van Halen was in 77. Because I could only imagine hearing Eruption at that point, because it's cool to hear it today, right? It's one of the few instrumentals I could put on and be like, damn, this thing just is incredible. But imagine in 77 hearing that when not every guitar player was doing that, right? That's why he was keeping his back to the crowd. Incredible all these decades later.
And it's not just the guitar playing, it's what he did for the instrument with technology. I mean, I followed, and me, I'm into recording and all that stuff. But what he would do to mod his guitars with pickups, and he would buy, a body from, before Charvel was a name, a guitar, or Kramer. He was buying parts, and that's why they called that guitar the Frankenstein, because he was taking pickups and dipping them in wax or whatever the heck he was doing. Taking Marshall amplifiers and tweaking them, and that's why since then, he's had, whether it's Music Man, whether it's PV, I think Fender now owns, or as part of his Eddie Van Halen guitar collection, they've had different editions of his guitar, the 5150 amp that he put out with PV. The guy was a mastermind with electronics, and that he changed the landscape of the sound of the guitar. It's not just, you could play the same phrase as Eddie, but if you don't have his fingers, just like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Hendrix, you could have a lot of guys who come close, but no one will ever be like the original. And let's not forget, Alex's part in this whole thing, because them being brothers, being locked in, there is a special relationship when you have a sibling as a musician. I'm privileged to know. I mean, I recently did a cover gig with my brother on the drums, no rehearsals. He listens to the songs, 42. But I was able to lock in with him because we grew up with the same DNA. I know where he's going to move. It's like, so again, just like Eddie, you listen to that snare drum, it's Alex Van Halen. It's a sound. It's an unmistakable sound. So, I know this is all about Eddie, but I'm, just talking about. Right. I want to bring up Alex because, he was a huge part of Eddie's career.
And it's about Eddie, but it's about the body of work Eddie's leaving us, which is the Van Halen legacy, right? Which obviously Alex plays a part of. And I'm glad you brought that up because, in the last, 15 years, obviously Eddie's son, Wolfgang, was playing with them as well. And obviously, like I saw him with Wolfgang, and I wish Michael Anthony was there. But I have to think from Eddie's point of view, imagine that feeling. You got your brother on drums, and you got your son on bass with you. That has to be, for Eddie, such an incredible feeling to look around the stage and say, hey, that's my son. I have a son who's turning 17 this week. And I imagine playing in an arena and looking over and, hey, there's my son. That's got to be a pretty freaking cool feeling as a father.
Well, you had that experience with your daughter with the Gene Simmons when you did the master class.
Right. And that was in front of 20 people, which meant nothing, so to speak, So,
but it meant a huge amount to you because,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. Right. So that feeling I had for 2 hours on one day, now imagine feeling that for 10, 15 years, playing to tens of thousands of people. I'm sure that meant a lot to Eddie to be able to do that with his son. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that kind of bugs me, and I guess we don't know all the backstory at this point, and if it was resolved between him and Sammy, all that stuff, and with Michael, Michael Anthony, it would have been nice, at least at the end, as great it is to have his son a part of the Van Halen band, if Michael would have had one last performance with him or a couple of shows, and I would just hate to think, for Sammy's sake also, and for Michael, that shit lies out. I'm sorry for my, unresolved. That's I just hope that those guys are okay, because now they have to live with whatever consequences or whatever, however you want to say it, have now been left. You know,
and look, the rumor was, I think it was 2018, if I have my timeline right, that they were supposed to do a reunion tour, right? The original four guys, and then obviously it seems like it got paused, not even because of COVID, right? The rumor was at that point Eddie was getting sick, and there was just no way he could tour. You'd like to think, to your point, even if they didn't perform, which as a fan we would have loved that, right? But for themselves, I hope they were able to get that closure amongst themselves, because I just when none of us are getting any younger, and you just hate to see maybe people living with regrets afterwards. Hey, I wish I got to talk with them one more time, whatever. And that's always what I got the impression with Sammy. Would he play with them again? Yeah, I think he would. But I always got the impression he just missed that friendship also. And
of course,
of
course. There was a good however many years, I don't even know, say from 85 to, I don't know, but you watch a lot of videos where they did stuff for MTV or whatever. You could see there was a genuine, like for one another. I read Sammy's book. You read Sammy's book. You could find out a little bit more information about what that was like. But not only a great chemistry, in the studio and the songwriting. I mean, man, just the amount of songs that those guys cranked out. You know how hard it is? Imagine this, like you're Van Halen, you got David Lee Roth as your singer. I mean, David Lee Roth was already an icon. I mean, incredible stage performer. You could say whatever you want about his vocals. I particularly like him. I think he's got his own unique style. Oh, he's not a great vocalist. I think he's a pretty damn good vocalist. Does he make his own way during the concert and just sing whatever?
Of course, right.
We saw him recently, and he sounded great. We were like, wow. We were really, really impressed. But, then you bring in a new guy, and I had read recently that I think one of the singers they had reached out to was actually Patti Smythe. From Scandal, or she was, to come and sing, ironically, which that would have been interesting. But
even more interesting than that, I just found out recently they talked very briefly with Daryl Hall.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that.
I don't see how that one could ever have happened. But
you just never know. I mean,
you never know, right? Exactly. But look, I'm hard pressed to think of another band where they changed lead singers at the top of their game. Right, because when Dave Lee Roth left in '85, Van Halen was at the top of their game, and Sammy came in, and they stayed at the top of the game. Right, so I know AC/DC, Iron Maiden changed singers. I would argue that those bands were not yet at the top of their game. When Dave Lee Roth left in '84, there's no denying Van Halen was one of the biggest bands in the rock bands in the world at that point. Right, and it takes a special musical talent to me, such as Eddie Van Halen, to be able to pull off changing lead singers, to your point, very different singers, very different, and pull it off where we could have the debates and the arguments of which one was better, because they both lived on their own so successfully.
Yeah.
And to me, that's Eddie Van Halen.
Absolutely. Look, he was a brilliant songwriter. It's not just some of the obvious choices. I love a song like "Finish What You Started." I love his guitar playing in that. Like, it's just, it's like a cleaner thing that he plays, and sounds like he's more finger picking or doing whatever he's doing there. But just so damn precise. That's the other thing. Like, we know he had his bouts with alcohol and all this other stuff, and you could see footage online, and look for the good stuff. That's what I'm gonna say.
And there's tons of it. It's not too hard to find.
Of it.
Not too hard to find at all.
We watched actually at your place. I remember when you got the 5150. It was a live from New Haven. Remember that? Yeah, on VHS, and that was an exciting Saturday night for us as a 16-year-old or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Remember watching that at your place, because we hadn't seen them live with Sammy, but we got the opportunity to do that with that VHS tape.
Absolutely. And, speaking of VHS tapes, as you know, in the 80s, I was a huge bootleg collector. And I remember I had a Kiss bootleg, whatever shows it was, a couple of like Largo, I think, whatever, that's immaterial for this conversation. My first non-Kiss bootleg that I ever remember owning was a video from Montreal, Van Halen, 1984 tour. And I must have watched that thing 100 times. I was mesmerized. I thought, like, my God, this band is incredible. This show is incredible. And it was a third or fourth generation bootleg copy at the time, a little bit grainy. Did not matter to me. To me, the performance, even with the grain and all of that, I was blown away, even just watching a bootleg video. So, you know, to me, the legacy he leaves us. Now, did you ever see Van Halen? I know you weren't as big on going to concerts as I was, especially. Did you go see them ever in concert?
I did see them in the 90s.
Okay.
I think I was at Jones Beach.
Okay.
Maybe it was 95, I want to say.
Right. That was with Sammy, obviously, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's what I was thinking. I was like, thank God I was able to, to see them at least once. Not the original lineup, but still, get to see Eddie play live.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've seen them a handful of times with both Sammy and with Dave. I'm disappointed in myself. You know me, I'm always like, better to go and do something and regret it than to not go and do something and regret it. Well, the last tour they did with Dave, I don't know why. I was just like, the tickets are like $150. You know what? I'll catch them next tour. And that is so unlike me. All right, I'll have to live with that regret. But, I am fortunate. I saw them both with Sammy and Dave. And when we did our top 10 concerts, I don't think it made my top 10, but I think I said it would make my top 15. When I saw them reunited with Dave in 2007, I think it was, I remember arriving to the arena that night, and we got there like 25 after 8, walking around, hit the bathroom really quick, and I'm walking with my brother, and all of a sudden we could hear inside the arena, even though we're walking around like where they sell the T-shirts, you could hear, "Girl, you really got me." And I'm like, well, hold on, what the hell's going on? We went running in, and they would literally just hitting the stage, and we missed like the first 45 seconds. But that concert was incredible that night. And I just say, you know what was I thinking in whatever it was 2015? Why didn't I go again? Yeah, I know Dave Lee Roth's voice wasn't the best at that point. Who cares? So I live with that regret, but I'm fortunate that I did get to see them a number of times.
Yeah.
So, another thing people don't know, I just want to mention this while it's on my mind. Eddie Van Halen, actually wrote a song with Black Sabbath. So he's not credited on it. I think the name of the song is Evil Eye, if I remember right, during the mid-90s. So go check that out, Black Sabbath song, Evil Eye. He wrote it with Tony and with Giza. Ozzy's not in the band at that time, but he's not credited on the song. But, you're talking about two of the greatest guitar players, the greatest songwriters of all time. So just check that out. I think that's kind of cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't because he's not credited. The record label, Warner Brothers, would not let him be credited on it for whatever reason. So he's uncredited, but it's known 100% that he was a songwriter on that. So just wanted to kind of call that out for those deep Eddie Van Halen fans to take a look for.
And we'd be remiss because we normally talk a lot about Kiss and, the link that Gene has to the band. And,
absolutely.
He's credited he's thanked on the back of the first album. And supposedly he was shopping them around or trying to get them a contract, and they played on a couple of demos that was recently released. Well, it wasn't released. It was on the Gene Simmons Vault. That's why I was going to No, it wasn't. It's only released if you put up the money to buy the vault.
Right, exactly.
But at the Van Halen brothers played on Christine 16, was it?
Yep. And Tunnel of Love and Got Love for Sale, I think it was.
Got Love for Sale. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yep.
That Gene was using the Van Halen brothers as his session guys.
Absolutely.
And when you hear it, it's not, you're not hearing like Eddie doing his usual Eddie thing, but supposedly the story goes, the melody that he did for Christine 16, Gene told Ace, I want you to play that. Right.
Exactly.
So
Yep. And it sounds like
which is kind of cool.
The demo. Yep.
It's kind of cool,
It is definitely. And look, to me with Eddie, whether it's Dave, whether it's Sammy, you look at those albums, there's really not a clunker in them. I know people have personal favorites and maybe some they like a little less. Like for me personally, Dive It Down might be my least favorite. But every one of those albums still has at least a few songs, whether it's, some of these instrumental things that Eddie's doing and or the actual songs themselves that are just, incredible. Yeah. We're talking 10 out of 10 type of songs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and again, to reinvent yourself, like you said, on top of the world, one of the biggest bands, I don't know how, they pulled that one off. And they pulled it off because they picked the right guy, And listen, like Sammy Hagar had I would say a pretty modest solo career at that point. I mean, he had, Can't Drive 55. He had There's Only One Way to Rock. He had a couple of great tunes, but he wasn't a huge solo artist, like as far as on the level of some other people. I know they were big Montrose fans, they liked him from even back then. And so there was, maybe they were always looking at Sammy, at the corner of their eye. But yeah, I mean, those songs that they did with Sammy are incredible. There's actually some good footage on there's a lot of great footage on YouTube, but I actually just watched it a couple of days ago. It's kind of really grainy and crappy, but of them in the 5150 studios, and they're doing Dreams, and they do Won't Get Fooled Again, and you see Alex is in the recording room. It's like this big room, and it's like glass panels, and you could just see, like, I think it's right before Dreams, Sammy goes and takes a sip out of a beer, and you wouldn't do that in these days. Eddie takes the same beer and drinks it, and you could just see, like, what they had, this, this, I think this was 93, 94, this footage, and just incredible performance again, live, in the studio. They were just messing around, just jamming, they had already recorded the tune, but yeah, just incredible.
Well, usually when we do this, one of the ways we wrap up is by saying to people, go listen to the body of work, go listen to what they played on this. I'm hard to press to think, I'm going to listen to Eruption, but God, the body of work is so big and so incredible. I'm hard pressed to think, what is the first thing besides Eruption that I want to pull out and listen to? Probably Van Halen 1, because that's where it started, but can you go wrong with pulling out any one of the albums and saying, I'm going to listen to this? It's just, it's incredible.
I mean, I own them all. I happen to have these two out now. I'll probably do that. I'll do the first Van Halen album just because it's so iconic. It's their first. And then, I'll do the 84, and then I'll probably go to 5150 just to kind of skip around a little bit, I mean, I love the OU 812 album too. There's a lot of great tunes on that record.
And I sit here and I say, but you're not listening to Unchained? That opening guitar riff? How are you not listening to that? Right? So that's what I mean. It's like,
exactly.
It's just, and I picked Unchained, but you can, you could rattle off tons of other songs. Somebody Get Me a Doctor. You're not going to listen to that right now?
Yeah. Even the stuff he did acoustic, like on Ice Cream Man, that whole thing, whole vibe.
You're not going to listen to Beautiful Girls up there. Come on, that's great. It's just, and that's and for me, one of my favorite albums is For Unlawful Common Knowledge. That you're not going to listen to that, So it's just, it's amazing the body of work he leaves behind for us. And hell, take tomorrow off of work and listen to it all. How about that?
Yeah.
Because it's incredible, the body of work that's there.
Yep. And just know that there's never ever going to be another guy like Eddie that will ever walk this face of the earth. There's some people who arrive and they make their mark, and they're just, you can never ever duplicate that. It's just, and it was a special time, it was just a special time through the different eras, whether it's the 50s, the 60s, 70s, guys who made their mark, whether it was because the technology was evolving at the same time, whether it's because, and I always have said this to you, as soon as you hear as soon as the riff is written to Whole Lotta Love, you can never use that again.
Right.
And then as soon as Won't Get Fooled Again gets written, you can never use those, and it's just so hard as an original artist to produce original music, because there's so much great stuff that's already been used, and there's only so many sequences and combinations you could do.
Sure.
And that's what Eddie did that was different, because he used a special technique that nobody has really done at that time, And unless somebody could figure something else out, you could look at it. There's amazing musicians who are unknowns who could do incredibly technical stuff on YouTube. It makes me want to just burn all my equipment. But Eddie just having the ability to do this in the mainstream, having the ability of using the MTV era to kind of push that 84 album, because remember, that's about the same time, that 83, 84, where MTV was really,
absolutely,
elevating these artists, So.
Yep. And there's one other thing that comes to mind with Eddie that has nothing to do with the music. It's the last few years, but I just have to bring this up. I think it's funny. Him and his son was at a concert. I want to say it was Tool. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I want to say it was Tool.
I think you're right about that.
And a fan that was at the concert tapped Eddie on the shoulder because the fan wanted to take a picture of himself with the stage of Tool behind them, and had no idea who Eddie Van Halen was. And I don't, I don't get upset about that. A 16, 17-year-old kid by face, they might have known Van Halen music, but hey, not that that guy was Eddie Van Halen. And his son, Wolfgang, took a picture of his dad taking a picture of the guy. And there's just something about that. I'm like, that's pretty freaking cool. Here's Eddie Van Halen, a guitar legend. And at the end of the day, I look at that picture and I'm like, well, he was just like one of us. He was just at a concert with his son, having a great time, and took a picture for another fan like anybody else would. And to me, that's just one of the things I remember and think about today as soon as I found out was that picture. Just like, he's a guitar god. He's written some of the most incredible songs. And at the end of the day, there he was sitting at a concert with his son, just like, most of us would do with friends or with our son, and enjoying music. And that, at the end of the day, is what it's all about to me.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't even get it because you basically contacted me. I didn't even read anything about that. I just saw he died of cancer. What type of cancer did he have? I
know he had throat cancer, a cancer on the tongue. Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't read yet if they've announced. I know his son made a comment that he lost his battle with cancer. I don't recall it saying what it was. I think I just assumed. If it was there, I didn't retain it, but I just assumed it had to do with the throat cancer and the tongue cancer and all of that.
It's just, again, me. I always say I don't try to be preachy with these things, No matter how much money Eddie had, try to get the best treatment. You got to take care of yourself. So
absolutely. If
you're on that, again, as I always say, call the people, maybe loved ones who you haven't spoken to because you had a rift with them or do whatever. Do it. Call these people because you just don't know. Or if you're debating whether or not you should kick some sort of habit or for whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's just like sometimes these things hit you even harder when you hear things like this because he died at 65, and that's the shame of this. He could have still been doing, when this pandemic lifts, he could have still been playing concerts, for another, 15 years. Who knows,
Absolutely.
And it's just a damn shame, that it's got to be because of something that ultimately probably could have been prevented,
Yep. No, so. It's a shame. I don't know what else to say. I'll crank some of the tunes. I'm glad I've got to see him perform a number of times. I'm glad, like you, I have every one of the albums. I'll go back. I'll listen to them. I'm going to take time tonight. I'll take time over the next few days to really enjoy those. And, I'm happy that I lived during the time where I was able to see him perform and get, I think of like my kids who I don't think either one of them got to see, and then they won't have that chance now. So I'm fortunate and I feel lucky that I was blessed that I did get to see him a number of times.
Yeah. So. I got to see him once, so I didn't say a number of times, but at least I do have that one.
You got to see him.
I got that once.
Yes, you did. So, all right, buddy. This one, I know like you said before, we've had to do a few of these. This one was tough to me. Yep. This one was really tough. This one hit hard is the best way to say it.
Yeah, it's not fully realized in my brain yet. You know what I mean? It's going to be worse, I think, as I sit down and start reading and the tributes and the stuff that is probably going to go out. There'll be a ton of them, and so it really sucks.
Yep. Anybody who's watching, let us know what your favorite Eddie Van Halen song, guitar solo, whatever it is. What do you remember about Eddie? What did Eddie mean to you? He meant so much to everybody. So I don't know what else to say.
Nothing else that can be said, I think, at this point. No.
So. All right, buddy. I think we'll wrap this then. Everybody, go enjoy Eddie Van Halen's music. Eddie, thank you so much for all the memories. We'll miss you here.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, everybody, take it easy.
Take care.
Once more, I just want to say thank you, Eddie, for all of the incredible memories you're leaving behind for us. Today's a day that hit all of us really, really hard. To Alex, Wolfgang, and the entire Van Halen family, my sincerest and deepest condolences to you guys. To all of the fans around the world, let's crank up Eddie's music, and I know his legacy will live on forever in all of us. Eddie, rest in peace.